Welcome to Hemp Barons. I'm Dan Humiston, and on today's show, we're going to take a deep dive into CBD. Our guest has a vertically integrated hemp facility in Kentucky, and they manufacture CBD. This is a great show because he really takes the time to answer a lot of our listeners' CBD questions. Let's join my conversation with Roger Hayes from Green Remedies. Hey, Roger, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I heard a lot about it, and we've really been looking forward to this.
Well, we're having a great time with Hemp Barons, and we're meeting a lot of really interesting people. But I'm excited to have you on the show because just how much you know about CBD. And, you know, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off by just going through some questions that a lot of my listeners ask us. Before we start talking about Green Remedy, maybe we could talk a little bit about CBD in general, if you're okay with that.
That's my favorite topic these days.
Cool. I refer to it kind of as a double-edged sword with CBD, is that a lot of the cases that you hear about, usually most of the time you hear about it, is somebody says, you know, I took CBD and I got immediate relief. And, you know, that's great, but it's not always the norm. And I think that people need to understand that this doesn't work like Advil. It doesn't always work immediately. And, you know, sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes days or weeks. And, you know, maybe you can start off by explaining why it's different than, say, Advil.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's fortunate that being in this business, I already come from a background of healthcare, and I always considered myself a walking case study for healthcare because I've always been in such bad health because of the lifestyle I lead, being on the road, being an entrepreneur. But it is different. It is different for everybody. And I think one of the reasons that there's going to be such a difficult time standardizing this is because people have to understand that whether you believe that we were created, evolved, or leftovers from some Game of Thrones finale, every one of us has this endocannabinoid system. If you believe in that, and you believe we really were made to kind of heal ourselves and mend ourselves for the most part, and that the system, it's just looking for fuel. And these cannabinoids that come in such, you know, rich fashion from the hemp plant, it provides that fuel. But we know our bodies don't make enough of it, and that when we do start taking it, our bodies will kind of find its own level of what needs fixed, whether it's pain, whether it's stress, whether it's sleep. And those are the three biggest reasons that people take CBD. Our suggestion to people is when they take it is always to start out low and slow and adjusting up after a week or so and just staying in touch with their body to see what effect it's having on them. Now, I can tell you, for as far as people taking Green Remedy is concerned, I've never had anybody say, well, it just does nothing for me. If they've been consistent with it, they'll typically notice something is happening. My own personal story is that I'm 6'2", 280 pounds, not the picture of health, and I love to play tennis. So I had knee surgery on both knees and had arthritis in both knees, was taking somewhere, I hate to admit it, but between 800 milligrams and 1,200 milligrams of ibuprofen, Advil, as you said, a day.
Oh, wow. So
it's just tearing up my kidneys. In addition, I don't mind telling people I was on an anxiety medication and a blood pressure medication and a focus medication for ADD. And when I started taking CBD, I noticed a change. First, it was in my anxiety level, and that took place within a couple of hours. Then slowly, as I kind of titrated up, if you will, to see, you know, what that effective serving size was going to be for me, I noticed my blood pressure went down. And then all of a sudden, the pain started going away. And within a couple months of just being on CBD alone, no arthritis pain anymore, gone. I wish I could say that it was because I got in shape and I started eating better, but I didn't. So in that clinical study of one, that's what it did for me.
And it was over an extended period of time. It just didn't happen overnight. Like you said, you noticed some differences initially, but a couple months into it before you really noticed took a full effect. Like I said earlier, I think sometimes people are like, well, I took it, it didn't work. And sometimes it takes a little while. I'm going to jump ahead here because I don't want to get too caught up in each part, but one of the ways that you take CBD is with a tincture. For those of you that don't know, because I was one of them, it's essentially just an eyedropper. We refer to it as tincture, but it's essentially just an eyedropper. And you draw a little oil and you put it in your mouth. And this is where I'm curious, is that you let it sit on under your tongue or in your cheek. And I've never done this with any other drug before. Why do you do this with CBD?
It's a great question, and it's one of our most asked. As Americans, we want what's quick and what's fast. So taking a pill form of it, people what they prefer. But the reason that we do it orally, sublingually, some people will call it mucosal, and that's basically the skin on the inside of your cheeks. It's all very thin layers. And if you ever notice after you've bitten your cheek, it heals very quickly. Well, there's a lot of blood flow to that area, and that's why. So when we can take this extract and we can put that in our mouths and under the tongue, I'll even suggest to people that just kind of swish it around your mouth a little bit, coat your cheeks and gums, and give it 30 seconds or so. Once you do that, there's really nothing left to swallow because your mouth just kind of coated with that extract. And that gets through the skin and it gets into the bloodstream. And the best part about that is that we don't have to worry about how it metabolizes through the liver. When we take medications orally, typically we have to worry about things like drug interactions and drug contraindications. And typically that's going to take place because of a site of metabolism, and that would be the liver in our case. So that's why we kind of steer people towards going to get it in your bloodstream as fast as you can without it having to worry about competing with other medications or other foods.
I see. Yeah. And that was going to be one of my other questions is that you're always hearing, well, you don't want to take this with this. Go to the pharmacy and you get a prescription and they say, make sure you take it on an empty stomach and don't take it with this and this and this. But there really isn't any guidelines for CBD, and a lot of people that are on medicine are always concerned that there may be an issue. What you're suggesting is by putting it under your tongue or swishing it around in your mouth, you can skip that whole going through your liver process.
That's right. And of course, we always suggest, people check with their healthcare provider at a minimum with their pharmacist, because their pharmacist is going to know all the medications or other supplements that they're on. There's interactions with lots of medicines, lots of supplements. It's a difference between interaction and contraindication. So your listeners need to know the difference. An interaction is just like maybe somebody taking warfarin. It's a blood thinner. They're supposed to avoid grapefruit. It's an interaction that will affect the efficacy of that certain medication. Whereas if it was a contraindication, it means you're not supposed to take it with this. But with interactions, it needs to be monitored, and the healthcare providers and the patients, consumers, need to know that there could be the possibility of some interaction either on the CBD side or the effectiveness of the medication that they're taking. Listeners, don't ever stop taking your medications to start taking CBD or any other supplement or medication unless you check with your healthcare provider first.
I have some people that are in, say, law enforcement or have federal jobs working for the federal government and are always concerned about possibly failing a drug test. I never know how to answer that question if they take CBD, if it will cause them to fail a drug test, and I don't want to be responsible for, I'd hate that to happen so I'd like to hear from somebody that actually knows.
Sure. And it's part of the reason we've been kind of full spectrum companies. We love that hemp plant and what that flower produces, and buy as many cannabinoids as we can get into the products. But as you said, even at that federally legal limit of 0.3% THC or less, there is a chance, and there's not been any exhaustive studies done on what that level is. And it's too hard to, again, because people's body makeups are different. So anybody in a position like that where they know they're going to be tested, we always suggest going with, a broad spectrum where it's got non-detectable amounts of THC. Doing so will help increase their chances of getting through that drug screen okay. I'll often suggest to people, they say, hey, this is your health. It's your workplace. If you're concerned with it, my number one suggestion would be to talk to your HR director and say, hey, I would like to take this product. Here's a certificate of analysis on it. Here's the receipt where I bought it. Am I okay to take this? And depending on the policy, they may be lenient, they may not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think until the drug testing companies get caught up with all this, much the same way they did with the poppy seed muffin and testing inconclusive for opiates, until we get to that level, we're still going to have kind of a guessing game.
Yeah. I kind of thought that was going to be your answer, is that, better err on the side of safety and do what you can to cover your butt if it means talking to your HR department and just making sure before you just self-medicate and find yourself in some sort of unexpected problems. That leads me right into Green Remedy. Let's talk about your company and, what makes your products unique.
In June of last year, I could pinpoint about 200 brands that were out there from a study on competition that we did. I can't even tell you now. I know in the spring it was well over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, those companies, the majority of them are marketing companies. They've bought some bulk oil or some private label product from somebody like us. We do a lot of those type of sales. And then they put their brand on it and they've gone out and sold it. And that's a great way to go to market. The problem is you still got individuals and groups out there making this stuff in their garage or their basement. For us, it's the consistency of being vertically integrated, stability that provides, where we grew 2 acres our first year. We grew 50 acres of our own hemp last year, and we'll grow close to 500 acres this year.
Oh my gosh, that's a big jump.
It is a big jump, but that's the demand's brought. And a lot of that has been because, especially on the private label side, where we're picking up business every week now from marketing companies that had a private label product and the extraction companies and other sources they were getting from just didn't follow through. It's happening more often than not now.
Well, I guess what you're saying is that when you buy from Green Remedy, you're really getting it from the source. I mean, it's right from the field. You're doing it all there. You know what you guys have a handle on everything that you're providing to the customer. Not getting it from a third party or from Eastern Europe or someplace else where we don't really know how it was grown. I think that's important. I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking at all your products. By the way, I love the logo, but all the products look great. You can order them right online. Lots of different, like one says evening blend and one says morning blend. I'm assuming that there's stuff for pets here. And you just really have a full array of products. It's very impressive.
Well, we've tried to respond to the market by not trying to jump too quickly for what some companies are doing. Again, we think that slow and steady wins the race. That pet product, by the way, is bacon flavored, and I've been known to take it myself because it tastes so good. But we've got more topicals. There's a big demand for topicals because people like to take the oil to get into the endocannabinoid system and into the bloodstream and kind of work from the inside out. The topicals, they mostly work in like that first centimeter underneath your skin. Mm-hmm. But you also have pain receptors that come up in that level. So a lot of people have found relief with the topicals. So we've got more topicals coming out and a couple other products that I can't mention now. We try to give the people what they want.
Obviously, and if anybody wants to order anything, I'll have all Roger's information and Green Remedy information on our website.
Order it right online. It's free shipping. I failed to mention that we do grow our hemp in, besides the best basketball state in the country, also the best state for hemp. That's all Kentucky grown.
Yeah, you just lost a bunch of your listeners on that one. Oh, that's great.
But yes, we grow it all on our farms in Kentucky and down in Nelson County, where bourbon is becoming co-king down there along with our hemp growth. And then we process it all and package it all in Louisville. We've got 2 facilities there totaling about 50,000 square feet. So we're ready to grow.
All right. Well, Roger, I appreciate you taking the time to answer a lot of our CBD questions and also to talk about Green Remedy. So thank you again for being on the show.
Anytime. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's fun. Good luck.